Hey, good evening, everybody. We are live with Beverly Rhodes, and Beverly's links are at the top of the description box for Beverly's channel and the Buy Me a Coffee. We are going to get into some of Beverly's backstory in this one as well because of the story of the kill switch, so we can have a greater understanding of it from personal experience. Beverly sent me some photos, and she's going to give you some of her backstory pertaining to that as well, because many of you heard on the other stream how cognizant she is about incoming phone calls. So we did speculate as to the increased levels of stress, anxiety, and tension in Virginia's life that led to the unaliving. And on the stream that I did before this one, if you missed it, I just did 2 hours looking at all of the different theories, including Tim Pool's theory, including Ryan Dawson, Kirby Sommers, what Beverly said yesterday, everyone. And I was racking my brains last night, just trying to assimilate everything into what happened. And my conclusion is that just like a pop star is worth more dead than they are alive to the corporations, especially when they're trying to break free from the corporations. The pharma side comes into play, whereby, you get these quack doctors that give these cocktails of pills and stuff. Pressure's on, more pills taken, pressure's on, more pills taken, next thing they're gone, and all the money just goes through the roof and it gets distributed to these evil entities. The inverse of that is that survivors are worth more dead than they are alive because of the risk of what they could expose for these powerful people. So was Virginia on the trajectory of, she was R-worded and essayed as a kid over years, which leads to a higher incidence of self-unaliving. So the programming was there from the get-go. Didn't necessarily need an incoming phone call to say, code word, this. It could have just been incremental pressure, trolling, including from Lady Victoria Harvey, other stresses that we don't know about, the stress from the alleged domestic abuse with her husband that Kirby Sommers told us about, the severance of the kids. Now, the severance of the kids would put someone into a depression, but would it be an unaliving depression? Because when I was contemplating unaliving, when I was facing 200 years, it was looking at the photos of my family members that kept me going. So surely it would be a mother's overriding instinct to have the life wish to see her kids at some point in the future than the depression of not having the kids temporarily, because she knew she would get access at some point. But anyway, we're not saying that any of these theories are correct. We're just bringing them to you, the viewers, so you can form your own conclusions. Like every subject that comes to this channel, we like to have a variety of interesting guests giving all of these different angles. And when Beverly brought up the kill switch yesterday, many people were intrigued, and Beverly's been inundated with questions to elaborate on that. So here we are, folks, and thank you for joining us, and put your questions in the comments. So Beverly, do you want to give an idea then of where we're going to go in this one?
Okay, so I think it's key to say that this is literally a possibility, a theory, and that it does happen amongst survivors and other types of operatives. So not just those who have been utilized, as I was for 9 years, and passed around various individuals all over the world, and made a lot of money and provided a lot of inside intelligence to various operatives, explaining various things that were happening, because that was kind of what they were into. And because I was very young, when you're that age, you don't really understand, what you're repeating, or if you've been asked to pick up something and collect something and bring it out with you, you don't really know, what it is that you're bringing out with you, in all fairness. Not absolutely, not at all. So this is a possible theory. It is usually most of those individuals that are utilized and sort of sent around the world on various jobs, because yes, they do call it jobs. That's what it's called. You've got a job and you never know who you're going to, ever. They never tell you for obvious reasons. And if you are part of the cleanup squad, they will tell you you're just there for cleanup, or you're there because you're a lookout, and no one's going to worry about a child sitting in a window looking out into the road. So when I was a lot later in my life, I ended up being a lookout as well. Same sort of situation. But by then, in all honesty, you know, they had already defined and decided on having permanent access to a trigger that's placed in your mind at that time under very, very, you know, difficult circumstances. And then they use phrases, and they have like these directives, so they go in, and it's very effective, because initially you don't realize, because you're only little, you don't really realize what's going on, obviously not. And then you have these, you know, commands that are embedded and you know, most important one, which you have literally from almost from day one, is make sure you're a good girl. And good girl means do whatever it is that your job requires. So if the steamer, which is sometimes what they're called, if the steamer requires you to do X, Y, and Z, if it's fellatio or whatever, carnal requirements, doesn't really matter what it is, make sure you're a good girl. Be a good girl. Do as you're told. So you learn, after you've been punished severely because you haven't done what you're told, you get punished, and the punishment is severe. It really is. And if it's to you yourself and you're not particularly too worried, then you end up doing the same again and becoming quite sort of arsey and say things and, you know, refuse to do things. Then they realize what it is that will make you do as you're told, to make you be a good girl. And for me, it was always my animals. But they always said to me, you know, if you consistently are defiant, you know, we will just have, you won't be worth anything. You won't be worth anything for us. And we can make sure that you're gone in an instant. You know, that's how they are. You know, if you don't make money, you know, they used to joke with me when I got older, and they say, well, you're sitting on your biggest asset. Lovely. So yes, I very soon realized I was sitting on my best asset, and I realized that I had to wait until I was old enough and I could get away from them safely. But I didn't realize until much, much later, until I'd gone through and survived the 7th of July London bombings. I don't know whether we can say that. Can we say that? The 7th of July London incident, shall we say. And after that, and I had been struck on the head, I was unfortunately left unconscious for quite some time. And during that unconscious period, all sorts of memories came back. So the picture I sent you was at the first London bombings memorial, where I was off to meet the various individuals, Prime Minister and John Reid and others, Tessa Jowell and various other people.
Is that the first photo?
It's the one with the big 7 in it. It's got a picture of me holding a big wreath with a 7
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
I see it.
Because that time I had, because I've got such a big mouth, they said, well, you're the one who's the big mouth, and this is all the 7 survivors, because we weren't getting the treatment we needed, and we weren't getting the help we needed, and we weren't getting any financial help, and some people couldn't work and some people couldn't walk, and it was absolutely horrid. And so they'd asked me to be the mouthpiece and meet when I was going to Number 10 and meeting with them, and going to the Home Office and meeting with John Reid and Tessa Jowell and all these others. So that was one of the memorials, and I took a big 7, which was from all of us, from all of the survivors, and we all chipped in as best we could. And I took that, and that was taken just outside one of the events that I was going to. So this was the start. Unfortunately, this was at King's Cross, and we managed to afford a really beautiful number 7. And this was from all 7 survivors. And this was the start of all of the memories. So this was in the first year thereafter. So that was 2006, outside King's Cross, which is where the memorial happened. And all of that then started flooding through. So it was almost like the bang on the bonds, you know, when you hit your head that severely and you become unconscious, you then start understanding all these other items that had been sort of placed in the back of your mind, and all these other aspects with words and phrases and, you know, specific tones and these low tones with individuals utilizing, you know, like almost day-to-day phrases, but saying and weaving commands in those phrases. So being a good girl was one of them. One of the other ones for the kill switch particularly was the one that was a highly embedded command. And I recall that one they started embedding at the age of 12. And that was a must obey one. So not only was that you must be a good girl, be a good girl, that was one of them. The other one was, you know, if you hear this command, this is what you need to do. So the first command was, if you hear X, Y, and Z, you need to make sure you have whatever. You go to the cupboard in the kitchen, or you go to the cupboard in the bathroom, and you go and you take absolutely everything that's in your medicine cabinet. You take all of it, all of the tablets, all of whatever it is. And if that's not enough, you go to the kitchen and you take everything else to make sure that you become unalived. So that was the one. The second one was after the age of 12. Francesca, this is what the kill switch is. It's a permanent trigger that's placed in your mind over significantly traumatic events that they cause with you. So they either bring you very, very close to almost taking your last breath, because I remember that at age 12. And then these are the kill switch that they insert into your mind. So it's a very strong, must obeyed, embedded command, you know. And yeah, you do get shamed for disobedience. Absolutely, you do. Yes, you do. And there's awful punishments for disobedience, you know. If you don't do as you're told, they will find ways to shame you, and they will make sure that not only you know about the shame, but any of the others, the lads and the girls that are going off on a job with you, they will make sure that they know that you're ashamed because you weren't a good girl and you didn't do what you were told. So there's many different levels of shameful practices that they will go through. And this is, you know, they don't feed you before you go out because they don't want you vomiting. But if you do vomit, then they will make you eat the vomit. And another reason why they don't feed you is because obviously you need to go have a potty break, and you can't go to potty. So, you know, it becomes, again, very shameful. These people, all they're interested in is servicing the steamers, servicing those individuals that have paid. They're only interested, show me the money. That's all they're interested in. And when you become a favorite, which unfortunately for me, I became a favorite very, very quickly, because when I was young, I was really, really slight. And the second picture I've shown you was obviously not this one. There's one with me with short hair. And because I decided at one point that I would be defiant. One of my defiance, I chopped all my hair off and I took it to the side and I just cut it. And I thought, right, that's going to put them off. No chance. So the one where I'm sitting on the couch with my short hair, that's the second one. That was my act of defiance. So I've chopped off my hair many times as an act of defiance. So when you start seeing the progression, the defiance is quite clear. But after the incident of 7/7, I started to remember, and I realized that the kill switch was the taking of the tablets and various other things, or whatever I could find in the kitchen. That's one of the kill switches. The other kill switch was that when I was in a vehicle, that I would then pull the handles and I would pull the steering wheel towards either a bridge or I would pull it towards trees, or something that would cause a significant car crash. So that was the other kill switch. So depending on my age, depending on where I was, and depending how reckless I'd been and how defiant I'd been, that is part and parcel of what the particular kill switch would be. I did learn after they killed my animals, and they'd taken one of my kittens and thrown it against the wall and killed the kitten. And when they also had let one of my dogs outside, one of my puppies outside, and it was killed in front of me in the middle of the road, I very soon realized that I didn't want any more animals to be killed because of me. And that's how they were able very, very carefully to control me, because they would always be saying, you're going to be a good girl, and you have a new kitten, and your new kitten will be fine when you come home. So these people are not to be messed with. And it is possible that after my period of service, shall we call it, my period of service and going out on jobs was finished at a certain age. By the time I was 15 and a half was my last jobs. That's when I ran away. By that time, by the time you're sort of 15-ish, like in the time of the picture, people aren't really, the steamers are not really that interested in you, because you're starting to develop and you're starting to become a lot more obvious that you're growing up. And so I was mainly used for cleanup jobs, or I was used for lookout jobs. So I didn't really have to do too much, unless there was somebody that would have preferred somebody a little bit older. And that's all part and parcel of it. However, from the age of 12, 13-ish, it was sort of 1972, 1973, that they started instilling the embedded commands, ones you have to obey, ones that you have to do. And that's when they start telling you when they're drowning you, and you feel that you want to live, obviously, it ends up where you start gasping and you think, well, that's it. That's it. I'm not going to wake up anymore. But you do, because they're very, very good at what they do. They make sure that while you are gasping for breath, that they will tell you, these are the commands. If you hear these words in these phrases, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. So we want you to go to the medicine cabinet. If you hear this command, this is what you need to do. And they phrase it in such a way that it's hard to explain, but it's almost like a directive, but it's said in such a way that it becomes normalized. And because they do it so often when you are so young, sort of starting age 12, right through up to about 1977, you have the same thing put in. And then later, when they realize that you're getting older and that you possibly could be in a vehicle with somebody, and if you then are starting to shame them, or you've been sent out on jobs that are with, very, very influential people, very, very wealthy people, and that you might recognize, and some of them I did eventually start recognizing as I was getting older. When I was younger, I didn't really recognize them. They were just, dirty old men. That's all, as far as I was concerned. And they didn't particularly smell very nice. And I just never thought much of them. I used to look up and count squares or count the wallpaper. I would count in order just to get through it, which I believe for a survivor is quite normal. But getting back to the kill switch is when you get to the point where you're not that effective anymore. You're not the favorite anymore. So you're not the one that's making the most money for them. I mean, I think one of the days, when I look back, the one of the days I did 11 clients, different jobs in different areas, 11 in one day. That was the most I can remember. and my handler came back with a wad like this, huge wad of money. So, you know, at the peak, I was making a huge amount of money for these people. So the kill switch was installed mainly because I had become, over a period, I become really, really popular. I would say from, you know, the 70s, 1972, 73, those areas, right up to about 75. For some reason, they decided that, you know, this child was a favorite of theirs, and I ended up being shunted and taken and flown here, flown there, and going to various bases and being moved from country to country at night, being brought back in the morning, you know, do the job, be a good girl, get back in, change clothes, get back into the aircraft, and get back to country of origin. All of that. And you have to keep all that absolutely quiet. You can't, even if you're going to school or even if you were homeschooled, you still wouldn't be able to say anything because nobody actually believes you anyway.
Bloody hell, Beverly, you've come out the gate strong there, haven't you? And what a, you know, harrowing, good grief. I don't know where to begin. It really hit my stomach, some of the things you said right then. And you've lived it. So, you know, perhaps you say it in a way as if, but I'm just gobstruck hearing what you went through. And I'm sure a lot of the viewers are equally emotionally thinking, bloody hell, Beverly, you've been through it. So we appreciate you putting what a kill switch is in the context of your life. And it must be traumatic for you to go back to some of that. But it has made a lot of questions come in. People are fascinated by this thing called the kill switch. So did you want to keep going, or did you want me to just start giving you these questions?
No, I'm happy to also explain what happens. You know, we'll talk about where I've gone from tragedy to triumph, because up until the big bang on my head in the train, you know, I had very few unusual situations where I was in the house and I would be watching the door, and I used to think, you know, you stupid cow, what are you watching the door for? What's wrong with you? And then I'd be watching, you know, when you close the door, and then I couldn't close the door, and I'd open the door and think, no, there's nobody there. Or if I'd watch underneath the door to see whether the light had been switched on. And I would think to myself, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? And then I wouldn't drink water. And then I used to think, well, I can't remember why is it I can't drink water again? And then I could never, you know, there was like these gaps. And I couldn't think, well, I don't drink water. Why don't I drink water? That's a bit silly, you know, silly move. Why are you not drinking water? And, you know, there was a lot of these itty bitty things where you kind of think, I don't know why I do this, but I do this. And, you know, I used to get accused of being sort of too close to my animals and used to love my animals too much. And I used to wonder why were these things, but I never ever, at that point, I never was able to put two and two together until the incident on the 7th of July, 2005 in London. And after I woke up from that, literally all hell broke loose. So not only did I remember the kill switch, I remembered the list of people. So I started writing feverish. I sit in my bed. And then after the counter-terrorist police had me pinned in the house for 2 days and told my partner to beetle off, not in those words and used other words, asked her to beetle off, and that she wasn't allowed in the dining room, which is where they were, and they had the officers outside. And I was going through all of the books, going to try and remember who these people were, who the fifth bomber was, and all these things were happening. And they were there for 2 days. And, you know, my partner kept saying, can I bring her at least a cup of tea? Can I bring her something to eat? You can't carry on like this. You know, she needs to have yogurt, because I'd had so much damage to my face, and you know, they had to rebuild my jaw and my teeth. So I couldn't, I was on baby food for like 6 months while the bone and everything started to regrow and I could have teeth put in. So, and then they just said, no, we've got to finish this. This is urgent. This is national security. Get out. So she was sent out and I was left in with them. And that was it. That was like a start of a second nightmare, because then all of this started coming forward and I'm feverishly writing down all the names. And obviously the powers that be were not interested in those names. They were only interested in the terror squad. They were only interested in who had I seen, who were they, what did they look like, could I identify them from these big books that they brought of, you know, possible people that might be, you know, included. And then I had to take like pictures of the train and where I was on the train, who was next to me, who do I remember. It was an absolute nightmare. But they weren't interested in the list of all the names of people that I remember. And then as I was writing the list, I remember them saying, you don't talk about this, in a very deep voice. If you ever talk about this, this is what you'll be told. This is how it will end up. And this is how you're going to be. We'll have one of these two outcomes. This will be your life, and that's how it will end. So do not talk about this. And you get this coming back. It's like, it's these phrases that are in your head and you remember them and you think, should I really be? And then I would quickly screw up the piece of paper, tie it up, put it in the bin, set it aside. So the paper would burn. And I think, oh, sure. And then you start thinking and panicking. Do they know? Do they know? I haven't said anything. I haven't given it to the officers. I should be fine. And this is what you go through. So it is possible. And when you start getting to the point where I think that the lovely Virginia, she must have been very afraid. And I think for her babies would have been like the ultimate betrayal, where she had her babies removed from her. And then she had other things removed from her. They will find out what's important to you. And I think that that's part of that, is when you get to the point where there's nothing left, I think it's possible that she reached the point of no return where there is nothing left. And that's probably what happened to her.
All right. So we've got over 1,000 watching live presently. And Beverly's YouTube channel link is in the description box. I'll put it in the live chat as well. I said yesterday some dark forces have been attacking the work that we've been doing with Beverly. So it's very important if you can support her and subscribe to her channel. And there's the link in the description box. So some of the more spiritual, psychic, supernatural shows now will be on Beverly's channel. You'll have to subscribe over on Beverly's channel to see those shows. So please go over there. So Susie is saying, who made your kill switch, Beverly?
So my handler was always, I remember when I opened my eyes in the water, because they were trying to unalive me through drowning. I remember looking up and seeing him, and then seeing next to him the doctor that they always had in tow, who was one that was always involved and always made sure that the stock, i.e. the girls and boys like me, that the stock was kept clean, i.e. that we had no transmittable diseases, and that we weren't going off with colds and flu and DMV diarrhea or anything like that. So we were kept clean. And if there was ever an incident where something had happened, that those doctors that worked for these groups, the Finders Clan, they would make absolutely sure that they didn't lose any stock. Because as I said earlier, the value in me was, I was sitting on it. So I'll leave you to use your own imaginations what the value was. So from that point of view, he was there. The doctor with the curly hair, he was there as well. And then there was somebody else who had I think he was used because I think he had links across the pond to people in America, he was really, really good at instilling the kill switch. And he was able to make sure that, you know, every time that it would be taken further, taken further, taken further, and you would be taken literally to almost like your last breath. And they would make sure that it was the last breath, and then the doctor would be there, and then they would put a needle in your heart and make sure that you were fine again. And this would go on and on and on from 1973 at the age of 12 for a good few years until they had the 2 kill switches. So it's the 2 aspects is, one, to unalive yourself through taking a pharmacy, you know, all sorts of things in your medicine cabinet in your bathroom, and the second one is you know, making some sort of an accident. And that's what alerted me when we realized that Virginia had that accident before. And that's why I thought, you know, this is why my theory would be that they had pushed and pushed and pushed. So the first one could have been doing what is necessary. You must obey. So the accident. And then the second one would have been the final showdown when she did what she did.
Yeah, that
there
fits
is
right
a way of
into,
getting rid of
that fits in right into what I was thinking last night about the escalation of the tension to make her unalive. So what was fascinating about your story earlier was that you said that the new trauma of the incident that happened in London with the terrorists, it kind of triggered and amplified the original trauma.
Yeah.
It's like the traumas are just linked together, and it's causing chaos in the brain. So the trauma of the car crash would have amplified her original trauma of years of essaying and R-wording going back to before Jeffrey and Maxwell.
Exactly.
And it would have made her more vulnerable to unaliving with just a little bit more pressure. So that makes sense to me completely. So
yeah, it would have been.
a few people are asking, for example, Susie's saying, is there a way to get rid of a kill switch? And Agent Orange is saying, can a kill switch be reversed or made inoperable?
I think that they can, as far as I know. I think they can be reversed or made inoperable. And I think from talking to individuals who were working with me as a subject that was under experiment at one of the big London hospitals, when they realized after, because I was going to talk to them about the whole 7/7 thing after the counter-terrorist police, and I'd given them my statement. I had said to them all this other stuff that had come up, and they were very, very interested in that because they'd never had somebody that was a subject that had gone through this to this level. And they had said to me, well, if we go through, if I explained to them what had happened, would I be interested in going through, being able to review and create a similar situation where they could reverse it, i.e. the same sort of tone of voice, the same sort of thing. And I think we tried twice, and it actually didn't work. It was, you know, I mean, the people that were doing, they're absolutely lovely. They're beautiful. They're lovely people, and they tried their very best at the London hospital. They were fantastic, but they weren't able to get it to a point. And by that time I was losing a lot of weight. And because of all the dental stuff after hitting the pole in my face, and my teeth became dislodged, and I didn't realize you're meant to spit your teeth out. It's a bit stupid. So I pushed them back in. So that caused all sorts of infections in the blood and all sorts of things. So I was going through all of that. And then obviously because you can't eat, I was losing a lot of weight, and I was finding it really difficult to eat. And I was on a soft diet for like months and months and months. And they just said, no, they think we've tried twice and it's not showing any major difference at all, sadly. And they just said, look, go for all of your treatments, get your teeth put in, regrow the bone in your jaw on this side here, regrow the bone, get it done, concentrate on getting the physical body back, and then later on we'll try again. And then after that I just learned to live with it. And that's why I don't answer the phone, because I'm just still too worried that, I know they're probably, everybody that we tried to replicate, luckily they're all passed away. They're not around anymore. So those voices, the voices that were happening with the handler, the doctor, and the chap that used to put the vocal commands, none of those are around anymore. They're all gone. So I don't think that it's necessarily going to be the same person. It's probably just my own fears of worrying that there's going to be a phone call, because I know that it's there, but those people are not alive anymore. They don't exist anymore. So how much has been available and passed on to the new owners of the groups around the world? Who knows? I don't even know. They will know past stock, because that's what we are, stock. They will know the list of past stock. They will also know all the list of the past handlers. Both of my handlers are dead. Good. One died some time ago. They actually both died some time ago. The one in America also died some time ago. And nobody else has been in touch. Nobody else has said anything. So as far as that goes, I think I'm pretty much in the clear. The only time that there was an issue was about 2 weeks ago, where somebody got hold of me and said, "Don't forget we own you." So I thought, nice.
I'm having flashbacks to Hannibal Lecter, where he used psychological techniques and just talking to his neighbor to get his neighbor to unalive himself. I think it was in The Silence of the Lambs. All right, so Sarah, would you not have to be a weak-minded person to obey a kill switch?
Really? A weak-minded person? A weak-minded person that's managed for 46 years to live with this shite? No. You try going through weeks and weeks and weeks and years of being drowned till you're almost dead and being told what your kill switch is. Are you telling me that you've just got to be strong and you just got to get up and say, "Well, get knotted, mate. I'm not going to obey your kill switch"? Look up embedded commands on the internet. Look up how it works. And you tell me whether you think that being, a weak-minded person, that you're just going to do as you're told.
Can they MK Ultra a kill switch on anyone or just SA survivors?
I think it could be anyone, but it wouldn't. You would have to be going through either some form of a program, or you would have to be valuable to them. It takes a lot to, when we're talking 1973, for quite a few years, from the age of 12 to be going through those processes, and utilizing different types of, benzodiazepams and other types of drugs, aspects, substances, shall we say, where they get you to that point. The reason why they do this is because someone is valuable. So if I wasn't valuable, they wouldn't have bothered. And a kill switch won't be on just anyone. If that person is valuable, and I was making a lot of money for them. These people my handler was being paid thousands and thousands of pounds every day, every time that I was going out on jobs. It was, and it was all cash. Nobody in those days, nobody ever used anything like, there was no such thing as credit cards and swipe machines and things like that. This was cold cash in hand. That was it, cash in the hand. They would stand outside, and you'd always have your bodyguard, and you'd have maybe one or two depending on where you were. And if they wanted extra time, the guys would come in, and there'd be a sign, and then they'd go back out, and then there'd have to be more money given to the handler. And the handler would say, "How long were you in there for?" And the guys would say, well, she was in there for 2 hours, or she was in there for 3 hours, or she was in there for 5 hours, or whatever. And the two, you know, beefy chaps would say, well, that's what the money is. You've paid X, you know, cough up the rest of the money. So that becomes very, very valuable. That's why the comment of them saying, well, your value, you're sitting on your value. Yeah, I was sitting on my value, and I knew it, and that was it. So because I was very, very valuable, I wasn't just anyone. It was, they were protecting the stock, the investment, and that the investment is making sure that you belong to them. And that's why they do this. I think it could be, you know, if you were someone who could be utilized in a honey trap, or you were someone who could be weaponized to go in and pick up certain things, then yes, I would say it could be done. But it's not, I don't think it's very cheap. I think, you know, when I look at the facility and I look at where I was taken to, and, you know, you've got to have a doctor, a proper doctor that can resuscitate the individual. And this goes on for years. It's not cheap. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't just do it to just anybody. It would have to be somebody that's making money for them. And I was making a lot of money for them.
So a question from Abundantly Empowered. Bev, do you know or suspect that you were followed and watched for a long time, or do you think you still are?
In 2007, we had an incident where the one of the squads came to the house and said the full list of survivors has been leaked to not only to the press but to a particular very dangerous terrorist group, and because you're the mouthpiece for the 7/7 survivors, we know that there's going to be a problem. And they suggested that we clear out of the rented property that we were in at the time in Norwich, and get out, basically, and then go to a safe home for a little while, just to make sure that we were safe. And then shortly after we were told that, my sister was attacked, bless him. And they had to make sure that he was moved to a safe place as well, and that his family was safe. And then they made sure that we were safe. So I think as far as that goes, I think we, in this house, we did have some black vehicles that pitched up outside and were watching the house for a while. But that has stopped about, I'd say about 8 or 9 years ago. After my book came out, there was some suspicious activity outside, but you know, I've got a lot of security in the house. All the windows have special devices on them, so that if you just tap the window, the whole alarms go off. And you know, I do have individuals that have been very kind to me, that I can pick up the phone at any time and they will be here like a shot. And I've got things like, you know, just general things, you know, the Kevlar vest, those sort of things that you would normally have for just in case.
Wow. So you've got like 26 questions pending. we've got 10 minutes left. I have to go to karate in 10 minutes, folks, but did you want to did you just want to keep it going, Beverly, with all these questions coming in, because I can't keep up with it?
Yeah, keep it going. It's fine. You know, we've got to get it out here. I mean, it is, for me, it is just a theory, and let's face it, I've gone from tragedy to triumph and, you know, managed to turn this around. But I think that at my late age now, it's important that the general public understand what is actually going on out there, because, you know, it is an unfortunate situation, and it is one of the best kept secrets, but a lot of this is now coming to light. You know, we've got Zara Marley, who's doing a fantastic job and putting all sorts of things together for survivors and helping the children, and everybody can, you know, move away from complex PTSD. It does take a long time. It took me 10 years. And just because it took me 10 years, it might take other people 5 years. It was just unfortunate that I had double bubble. I had, you know, the 7/7 London issues, and I had my past to deal with. So, you know, others, yes, you can recover from complex PTSD. You can lead a normal life. You can, because that's what I'm doing now. And I just want to bring it to everyone's attention. I'm not saying that that is exactly what happened to Virginia. I'm saying that it is possible. So to all the other survivors out there, you know, you would know if you have a kill switch installed, because you would remember going through exactly what I've just explained, because that is the way they do it. They also do it with using substances, and the same thing time and time again. They will use the same commands, and they will use it in such a way that it is an embedded command, that it is something that you must obey. And if you don't remember any of that, or you don't feel that there's something like that, then it's highly unlikely that you have something that's instilled in you.
So viewers, put a 1 in the chat if you'd like to see Beverly continue this stream when I have to go to karate in about 10 minutes. Put a 2 in the chat if you'd rather not. We've got almost 1,500 watching right now. It keeps rising. There's obviously a big fascination with this. So please support Beverly. She's got her own YouTube channel now. We've had to move some of the content over there. Dark forces have been trying to pull tricks on us, and that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, so, and Beverly also has a buy me a coffee if you want to donate to what she's doing. All right. So the next one is from Herbert. Is it possible that Virginia faked her death?
Hi, Herbert. Thank you for that question. Based on what her mental health situation was, it is unfortunately, it's highly unlikely that she has, which is really sad, that her only way out was to find peace that way. So sorry, Herbert. No, I personally don't believe that that is the case. No.
And there's a question that was addressing me somewhere as well. Let me see if I find it. All right, Irish Furry Tarot. I'll give my answer and then I can hand it over to you. What do you think, Shaun? Did she unalive herself, or was she unalive? Was MK Ultra involved? Is this to get Ghislaine and Andrew off the hook in the public eye? Was the hobby? Look, a lot of questions there. All right, so Irish Furry, regarding the first question, did she unalive herself, or was she unalive? I believe she unalived herself because the unalivers put enough pressure and triggers on her to do so. So it's not like those two are mutually exclusive. The unalivers are very sneaky, and if they can do it subtly, so they're not investigated, and you just look like you're completely cuckoo and you've done it yourself, then that's their ideal situation. It's like in prison. These Aryan Brotherhood guys, the neo-Nazis, they can just, you know, shank people to death in a heartbeat, but they'd rather inject them with an overdose of the brown, so that when the guards come along and it just looks like another dead junkie, that's their attitude towards it. No investigation, no murder, nothing. So people who are professional killers, they know all these tricks. Anyway, that's my response to the first one. Do you want to respond to the first one? We'll do them one by one, Beverly.
Okay.
Do you think she unalived herself, or was she unalived?
I actually think, based on her situation, I think she did unalive herself, and I will explain why I think that. Because I think that as time has marched on, remember my situation is 1973, and a few years after that, so up to 1977, 76, 77, things have marched on a bit somewhat since my situation. I think she was told, her command could have been, this is just me hypothetically thinking, theoretically, I think that she could have been told, if you lose your babies, if you have X amount of people saying X, etc., and if you lose your standing in the community, and if you're no longer respected, I think they've got so clever with their new ways of doing things that, whereas my commands were very specific, I think that hers would have been layer upon layer, because that's what they do, because they do it over a period of time. It's one layer, then it's another layer, then it's another layer. And I think, in my view, I think that Virginia was given different layers. And I think the last things was when she knew that she wasn't going to be able to see her babies, and what had happened to her with her marriage, because that's also very important, was very important to her. And those are the layers. And when you look at those layers being stripped away and there was nothing left after that, that would have been her own trigger, that they would have said, well, actually, this is the trigger. You can either have a phrase or you can have a directive. So nowadays, I think that they're using directives rather than phrases, because in my day it was phrases. I think the directive was, when you lose access to your children, your babies, then that's it for you. And I think with everybody, with her losing everything, being trolled but I think the bottom line was, the straw that broke the camel's back would have been when she knew she had the court case coming up and she lost her babies. She lost custody of her babies for whatever reason. That would have been the trigger, in my view. That's what I think has happened, is the level of, the directives and the commands. That's what I think has happened. And because of that, she would have seen no other way out and then left.
Yeah, well said. They are very clever as to how they go about doing these things, without leaving a trace. So was MK Ultra involved? So 2 of the key components of MK Ultra are childhood trauma and substances. We don't know the exact cause of death yet on Virginia, but I'm going to bet that substances were involved. We definitely know there was years and years of childhood trauma, the R word in, the SA in, from that horrific predator that came into life before Jeffrey. Now, a good book to read about MK Ultra is Chaos, about the Manson family, whereby they were doing tests on rats and mice and giving them like hallucinogenics and stuff, and they, watching the way they socialize. But they noticed that if they gave them hallucinogenics and meth, then the rats and mice started to gang R word, cannibalize, and do all of these really dark things. So the government wanted the hippie movement to become something dark in the public eye, to create some kind of scandal. And Manson was let in and out of prison, in and out. He had a pass. That's why we know the government was, it was a government experiment. So Manson did that with his followers. He had them on the hallucinogenics and the meth, and look what happened. They went and killed all of those people. So I think, MK Ultra techniques. She might not have been from MK Ultra, but MK Ultra techniques. Regarding the next one, Ghislaine and Andrew off the hook in the public eye, I think temporarily it puts them back in the public eye, but in the long run, it protects a lot of other people who she could possibly have named. And I don't know much about her husband, but Kirby Sommers has said she's going to come on at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So she knows a lot, and we'll put that question to her. Right, I am going to go to karate. There's 36 questions pending in the starred column. Can you access all those, Beverly?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay, great.
Do you wanna go off to your karate?
Yeah,
and I'll do the 36 questions.
You got free reign until Ron comes on at 8 with John Wencher, so not take your sweet time.
I'll get through the 36 questions for you, Shaun. I didn't think we thought that we would have so many questions. But
by the time you get through 36, there'll be another 50. I guarantee it.
Oh my word! All right, enjoy karate.
All right.
Good
luck, man. Please support Beverly's links in the description.
Karate chops. Have karate chops for me. Why not?
Got to be careful about these people coming for us, haven't we? All right.
Bye. Well, yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Oh my Lord. Right, let me go. I'd have to try and work out where Shaun got to. So I'm afraid you're just stuck with me now. Right, I'm going to make this a bit. No, I don't want that one. I don't want that one.
If you,
Right, there we go.
all the 36 that are still there, I haven't done any of them. I've just deleted.
You haven't done any of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go. I'll go to the top. There we go. I've got it. Lioness Lou. There we go. Okay. I've picked up where you finished, and then I'll unstar the thingamabob at the top. So pardon me if I press the wrong button, because you know technology and me, not the greatest. Lioness Lou. Wish I could understand this. Can it happen via parents? It depends. I think it's doubtful, because don't know many parents that would know how to install, without significant harm, how to install a kill switch or a command. It is possible to embed commands and some sort of a phrase or directive, so that is possible. But unless the parents are involved with, the fixer clan, which is what they are, they're fixers around the world, that everybody knows how to get hold of a fixer if they want, and to order what they particularly want, and they know the code words, and it's absolutely common out there. It's just the way that it is. So if it was happening via the parents, then the parents would be the handlers, or agree to have a handler with some of the fixers. But it is possible, but to that level, it's not usual. In my day, in the 70s, it's not usual in my day. Lioness, I hope that sort of kind of answers it for you. This one here, thought she was in a car wreck. Yeah, I think she had a minor car accident before she was unalived. And we've got, I think I've got to press a button. Hold on, let me do that quick. There we go. Oh, I did it. Oh, look at that. It does work. I think we did speak about Herman. We did ask his, and let's have a look at this one. Does it come up? Oh, it did. Okay. A good question. Wondering if there's any way to override the kill switch, maybe healing and integrating. Yes, I think integration is good, and I've been very lucky in as much as I've done a lot of light work and done a lot of soul searching and looking for those entities that were around the people that were outside the water when they were doing what they were doing. I've got to be careful what I say, obviously. And so we get another question saying, how is the kill switch detonated or activated? So when the trigger is placed, there's either a phrase or a set of words, and it's said in a particular very, very low tone, and it's a set of low tones. And in my case, it was a male voice. It's not always the same for everyone. If it's a male person, if it was a young lad, they would use a female person. But it's usually that voice, it's that particular voice in that tone. And they make sure they either walk past you and whisper it in your ear, or there's a phone call, or alternatively, there's different ways that they can get to you. I mean, I've known of somebody that was in a communal bathroom at an airport, and the person that was in the loo behind them had sent something specifically and that person was a so-called cleaner, which was obviously a fake cleaner, and that person just went completely blank, and that was the end of that. And we didn't see her again, unfortunately. That was at a train station as well. There was one at a train station. She came out, and that had happened. And I think that was because she was going to, I think it was 2 party conferences, from what I remember. And she, 2 of her jobs had been extremely high profile people, very high profile people. And I had become quite friendly with her because we ended up being sent out to jobs at the same time. And unfortunately, she didn't make it, and she'd unalived herself. So, and that's it. They can get you, as long as you can hear that particular level of activation in those days, in 1973, later. Nowadays, I think it's different. I do think they're able to do things like, you know, I'm not sure whether it's written or whether it's voice recording or whatever it is. I think they have got different ways now in which to get to you. They do. So that's a good question. Right, this one here. Thank you, Michelle. How would they communicate the kill switch to me? So what they, for mine, would have to be, it's a vocal verbal. All of my commands that were instilled in me were vocal. They didn't use music at all. That's not what I recall at all. They were all verbal, vocal, male voice, and that's how it was communicated. And it could be communicated telephonically, it could be through a broadcast, it could be, you know, if I'm walking down the street or something, they say something, walk past me and say something, or someone comes up and says hello and then shakes my hand and says something. It could be anything like that. But it was never, I never had music, because they do use that too. And I never had any of the others. I only ever had a verbal vocal, male voice. That was how they were communicating it to me. I hope that answers it, Michelle. And then we've got this one, Hard Water Gaming. That's an interesting title. If Virginia had a kill switch, surely they would have switched her off before the accusations. So it depends on what the remaining level of detail of information was that she had within her that she could have gone public with, because obviously there was nothing left that they could have taken from her. They took basically her marriage, and they took her children, her babies, as she had said, and there wasn't really anything left. So it depends really what was she remembering, what could she remember, what else did she have. So I think, Hard Water, you're trying to say that maybe they would have used the switch before she started with the accusations. Possibly she would have, maybe they would have used the switch beforehand, and then everything else would have been avoided. But historically, I think that what came out was part of acceptable damage, particularly with those that she was able to bring to justice, and those that she was able to sufficiently embarrass. I think that they were the fall guys. I'm guaranteeing you, Hard Water Gaming, the higher ups were never ever going to be implicated. And I think maybe this was the only way that she could have gone now, which is possibly why the things have ended up as sad as they have right now. Right, that's it. Bev, abundantly empowered. Do you know or suspect? I think we've answered that one. I'm just going to mark it as entered. Right, this one. This is Susie Ashton. Beverly, could you see the dismembered body parts after the bomb, or was it just darkness? If you didn't protect yourself, how do you cope with the trauma of it? No, we couldn't see any of those in the tunnels. It was there was very, very little light. It was hardly any light, actually. It was more smoke than anything else. And we had, at the top of the carriage, we had these piddly little, stupid little, like, strip lights. They were quite useless. And I still had those old sort of flip phony things. So when I woke up, I was looking for that so I could see. I couldn't see very much. All I could see was this fuzzy wuzzy smelly, it was quite it looked a bit like a bonfire, but not. Smelled like that too, but it smelled very, very tinny, very chemically, not like a bonfire, but if you had the smoke, couldn't actually see anyway, except for these stupid little lights. We did see everybody was all over on the floor and around and that, and there were people that were sitting on the floor and others sat on the floor. I managed to grab some of my things and was holding on as well. My face was very, very warm, very, very warm. And there were some people that were praying, and there were lots of different, I recall different voices coming out of the grayness. It wasn't pitch black. It was sort of grey because of these silly little strip lights, which are useless anyway. But you get it was kind of a bit surreal because it was dark, but then you had this yellowy, funny, whitey, yellowy hue at the top that was coming down into the carriage, and sort of everything was all over the place. And then people were praying, and then I heard some Greek people praying in Greek as well, and I heard a couple of other people as well. And I think everybody at the time was in the darkness or partial darkness. We were all just wondering whether we were going to get out of there. And we kind of got to the point where we'd made peace with the fact that this could be the last. And we made peace with the fact that maybe we weren't going to get out of there, because they did take a while. And there was a guy at the end of the carriage, and where the window goes down, the two windows between all the carriages, they were sending messages through there, and then we'd hear, is anybody coming? No. Has anybody heard anything? No. Is there a fire? No. And then I turned around to somebody else and said, this isn't a fire, this is an explosion. And then we realized, we thought, well, we don't know what the tunnel's like, we don't know what the damage is. And then we didn't hear anybody coming, we didn't know, and it took a long time before somebody had said, they're coming. They could see something at the end of the tunnel. They could see somebody coming down. So yeah, in the tunnel, we just felt that was it. We kind of made peace. Personally, I thought about what I had done in the morning. I was getting ready to go to a meeting because I was serving on with a consultancy company in London. We just won the London Olympics, and we were the organization that was putting together the security team, and I was working on that at the time. And I had in my mind, I thought about my children, I thought about my partner, had I said everything to everybody. I literally went through like a list of everything, thinking, I'm not getting out of here. Have I done everything? Does everybody know where to find everything? My grandson was on his way. He hadn't been born yet. What were they going to say to my grandson when he was born? All those things are going through your mind when you're sitting there and you kind of feel, is this it? And I was thinking, is this it? And then I kind of feel maybe it's not it. We just have to wait. We couldn't go anywhere. We were in the train, in the tunnel. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. We just had to wait in the partial darkness. So yeah, and we did have to protect ourselves, but I think the only thing we could do was pray. And there was a whole mixture in the train. There was a whole mixture of faiths, people, different types of praying. Thankfully there were no children on the train. Thank God there were no children on the train. So we all just prayed in our own way, did what we needed to do in order to wait to see whether they were going to come for us, whether emergency services were going to come for us. And we had a long wait. We did. It was longest wait ever. It felt like days. It wasn't days, but it felt like days. So I hope that answers your question. And I just need to do that. Francesca is saying, was it a coincidence that you were a victim in the bombings, or do you think it was on purpose? It's a very interesting question, Francesca. I think for me, it was part of my soul path and my soul plan that at some point that the 9 years that I was an SRA person, now a survivor that's gone from tragedy to triumph, I think it was necessary for me to go through that, because otherwise I might have gone through most of my life not realizing that there was all of this stuff that was buried that I hadn't even looked at, and was none the wiser. I still had my abilities. I was working, and I'd written my first book already by that time, and that was published in 1990. It's a long time ago, and that was sort of finding your cosmic connection. That was all about esoteric and metaphysics and being psychic and all those good things. So I would have just not known. So clearly it was meant for me, Francesca. I think I was meant to survive the bombings and go on and do something very different with my life, which is what I'm doing now. So I think it wasn't a coincidence. I think it was meant to be. It's how I look at it. I hope that answers the question. So we've got another one. Okay. So it says here, if you didn't protect yourself, i.e. always wearing black and white, crystals, etc., what would happen to you? Don't think. Would they totally be able to control you? I don't believe that they would be able to control me at this late stage. I think, I'm too old. And, next big birthday is creeping up the hill towards 70. So I'm not valuable to anybody anymore. I'm not valuable to those groups. And, from 1973 to now, it's a very, very long time. And most of the people that are on my list of steamers of people that were serviced on jobs that I went on, in all fairness, most of them are very, very old men by now. And I don't think they're particularly of interest to anyone. So why would they bother? Why would they bother to control me? Why would they bother? For what reason? I don't make them money. And even if my list that is with somebody who's trusted and with my solicitor, my lawyer, even if that list were to come out, half of the lists have already popped their clogs. They're already, pushing up the daisies. So, I'm not like Virginia, where Virginia still had individuals that were still very definitely kicking around and would have been jobs that she would have gone on, where these people are still in power. They're still very famous. They're still extremely well known. Because of my age, I don't think I'm particularly valuable to anyone, or valuable enough to spend the resources to control what I'm saying and what I'm doing. I'm not really that valuable to anyone. So I doubt it. I doubt very much whether they would bother with me. It's just the way I feel about that one. People's Poet. What can we individually do to help defeat this darkness? Oh, People's Poet, God bless you. That is so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. That's really kind of you. Thank you so much. I think individually to help defeat the darkness is open your heart to understand that, survivors went through what they went through. Survivors do not make up tales. Why would you want to make up a tale like this? Why? There's nobody would want to make up this horrific stuff. And I purposely gloss over things, because if I had to tell you all the deep stuff, you would just cry endlessly, because this is what these people do. So if you can, at least be that one person that a survivor can go to. Be that one person. that can be the light in the dark, so that that survivor can go to you and say, oh, this is what happened to me. Please, can I talk to you? Be that person that listens, and then try to help as best you can. And to defeat them is allow yourself to realize, open your eyes and see what's around you. Check out children. See all the signs. If there's a child that really doesn't want to go with somebody, that's throwing a tantrum and doesn't want to go with somebody, be that person that will go up and say, is that child your child? Why is that child doing that? Why is that child so upset? Is there a reason for it? You're going to get backlash. Yes, you will. You will have a parent that will say, butt out. This is my child. This child is just throwing a happy fit and being annoyed, etc. But what if one day you go up to somebody for a child that is really pushing and scraping and screaming and crying? What happens if you go up to somebody and that person is actually taking a child that isn't their child? Be that person that makes a difference. And, don't be afraid to come forward and ask questions, because nothing wrong with asking questions. If you made a mistake, and I've done it personally, I have got into a lot of trouble before where I know what I saw, and I went up and I said to the parents, do you know that I've just seen this happen? And the grandparent was there, and she said, no, you must have seen wrong. I said, no, I know exactly what I saw. I know where his hands were. I know what I saw. I know where the hands were going. And yeah, they were really, really annoyed and said, I didn't see what I did see. So, but that's fine. You can live with it. And then it just alerts everyone, because once you've sown the seed, people then they are awake. They start looking, they're seeing things. So even if you can do that, thank you for that question, the People's Poet. And I'm so pleased that you would like to individually help, because I feel very strongly that you will be one of the people that will make a difference, even if you just make a difference to one child and one person. That's one less for those lot to go and do all sorts of things with horrible people. Michelle, oh, that's a good question. Did the handlers give you any money? Well, they didn't give the money to me. No, the handlers always had the two big bouncers, and either they would get the money in the beginning of the job, and then if the job extended, the two big chaps that were always protecting their investment would then say, I've just got to go and ask the boss if we've got another job to go to, then you can't extend. But if we don't have another job to go to, then you can extend, but then you'll have to pay up. So usually they would give it to the big chaps, or they would give it to the handler. But sometimes, occasionally, the steamer on the job would give me directly a tip or give me some money, which I would then fold up and put away. And I won't tell you where I put it, but I would then take that money. I wouldn't tell them, because that was my getaway fund. And I would then take that out when I got back to the house. And then I had a little pouch, and I would put it in the pouch, and I hid it underneath the drawer. And it was there for a long time. That was my getaway fund. That was my escape fund. So no, the handlers never gave me any money, ever. Not once, not ever. Because they were always aware of how much was the job, how much were they getting, how much was extra time, how much cash did they have to have. And then they would have to, as handlers, they would have to go back and then go and speak to whoever the next person above was to say, that particular one today, how much did you make? How much cash have you got on you? Do you need to do a drop off? And that's what would happen. So there was no ways that would even have, £5 or £10 or £2 or anything less than what the higher ups were expecting as far as the handler. The handler had to give the money and take their cut and give the money to the central individuals. So no. I only ever got given extra money by the steamers, by the person I was servicing. And it wasn't, you know, wasn't always. That's why it took a long time to get the escape fund sorted. Ruth M. Would a therapy like EMDR be able to help with the kill switch? I did try EMDR once. I must admit I didn't find it very helpful. I didn't find it that it even did anything for me, quite frankly, at the time. So I don't know whether it would. I would imagine maybe today, and EMDR was when it first started quite a few years ago. I would imagine nowadays they're probably a lot further along with new people, maybe with complex PTSD. I'm not sure. I can only say for me personally, the EMDR that I went through actually didn't do anything for me at all. No, but I think for other people, as long as the EMDR practitioner knew how to do whatever's necessary using EMDR to remove the kill switch, maybe nowadays they've come a long way and they know how to deal with it this way. I'm not sure. I'm not an EMDR specialist, so I don't really know. I did try it once, but it didn't really do very much. But that's a really good question, Ruth. I do hope that somebody somewhere finds a way to be able to deal with these things. And let's have a look. Let's have a look at this one. Is it Chan or Cyan? One of the two. I'm going to be right in one of them, I'm sure. Question. Was the doctor trained by Mengele? I never saw Mengele at the time. I never saw him. I would imagine that the doctor would have been trained by somebody who understood the methods, because in all the times from sort of 1973 onwards, the methods were the same. Whatever they did, it never changed. The water in the bath and the drowning was the same. They never changed the way they did it. They always had the three men, the doctor, the handler, and this other person that knew how to do this. It never changed. It was always the same modus operandi. It never changed. So I'm imagining that there probably was someone who passed down the methods. I can't say for sure whether that person was trained by Mengele, because it was 1973. What's that? That's a good 56. That's about 20-30 years. So that would have made that person a lot older. So I'm not sure whether that person would have been trained by Mengele himself. It would have been the way that they do these things. They would have passed it on. Is kind of my thing. I hope that answers that question. Spooky Spoon. How cool is that? So did Virginia have a stroke after the accident or something? Based on what we know at this point, and based on the fact that she was unalived, it's unlikely that it would have been that. But if she did have some sort of a clinical episode like trans-ischemic attack or a stroke or something like that, it could have been brought on by whatever she did as part of unaliving herself. Okay, thank you, Spooky Spoon. And I'm getting there. 20 questions left. Is the best way to override this evil by making your vibration higher? Yeah, I think overriding, yes, go into a higher vibration and sustain it and keep it as high as possible. There are ways in doing that. Yes, there are. Thank you, Susie. Irish Fairy Tarot. That's a very interesting name. What do you think Shaun did as she unalived herself, or was she unalived? I think we had this question before. And he didn't unstar it. He's very naughty. Going to have to pinch him. And here we go, Michelle J. And here's this one, Michelle. What can Ryan do to stop them ruining, oh bless him, his eyesight? That's if it's them and not medical. So that's a really good question, Michelle. Yeah, I heard about what's happened to Ryan, bless him, with his eye situation, the ocular problems. I believe he is going to a really good physician and clinician. So I believe he's in very good hands with that. If it's not a clinical environment, if there is something else, and we know there are these things that can cause this sort of problem, there are things that can help remove the attachments, because it would be the attachments because of the way they attack from the back, and because so those areas are really close to where it would control sight. Then there are a lot of things that he could be doing. But I think the first point of call for Ryan particularly is Ryan Dawson, that is, for him to go through and exclude all the clinical aspects before you start looking at the spiritual or the esoteric aspects. And that would be if he's open to looking at the spiritual aspects and possible esoteric aspects. There would be some ways, I think. There would be. I've got somebody in Finland who's busy going through that and has been going through about 2 months now. And she has had something similar. And I would ask him to talk to her first and see how she's improving. And then they can compare notes. Good question. Agent Orange. Now, how do I do this? Oh, there we go. Yeah, it worked. Growing up in a religious home, extreme, bless you, I heard that not eating meat made you vulnerable to being possessed. Is there any truth in that? It's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. So if you do eat meat, then a lot of the times, particularly those that are the darker ones or becoming demonized, remember that rotting flesh in your stomach, which is what other flesh of other creatures, beef and pork, etc., lambs, sheep, all those sort of things, that is quite attractive, plus also very heavy, and it creates a heaviness spiritually, and it does create a difficulty for you as a person to be able to heighten your vibration, because you have all the vibrations of the animal and their energies before their demise, before they exit. That also then means that you cannot get that necessary light and the height that's necessary in order to keep you vibrating too high, that demonic realms for demonization are unable to get in. And if you couple that with substance abuse and alcohol abuse and all of those aspects, it makes it extremely easy for the beginnings of attachments and possession. So yeah, not eating meat is actually a good way to allow your energy and your vibrations to be raised, so that these beings that prefer a very low vibration, of those that have got a lot of rotting flesh in their system, that's the preference for them. So it is the complete opposite. I hope that answers that, Agent Orange. That's a really good question, by the way. So we've got another one from Vilju Shada Peredi. I think I managed that one. AI generated commands from recordings. Oh, I think that one, in all fairness, that one is a bit after my time. 1973, there wasn't such a thing as the internet. Even there wasn't mobile phones. At the most we had a tape recording device. That was it. And I mean, it was really scratchy recordings. I mean, it was not very good at all. If you wanted to tape something, you had to push down the two little pegs, and then when you played it back, it was not very nice. It was really awful recording. So possibly nowadays, today's cycle, maybe, possibly, maybe could be AI generated commands, because I think things have changed and marched on a lot since 1973. So I hope that answers your question. I would imagine they would have moved with the times, unlike me, who didn't move with the times. But yeah, it's possible. I've answered that one. We've got Gail, 34. So what is Gail saying? When did you begin your healing, retrain the brain, and finally felt independence and freedom? Oh, thank you, Gail. Such a lovely picture of you too. Thank you for sharing, and prayers for you. Yes, thank you so much. I started the direct healing in after I came out of hospital, and that was in August of 2005. For the issues with the jaw and everything, I went into hospital when on the 17th of August in 2005. I came out of that and then was taken back home so that I could start healing. So basically I started actively after about 2 or 3 days after, anesthetic wore off and all that. I started working on, trying to figure everything out, writing endless diaries and notes. I mean, I've got like piles like this, piles and piles and piles of notebooks and drawings and sketches and names and all sorts of things. So yeah, I started in August of 2005, and it took about 10 years of non-stop daily work on the self, work on the soul, work on food, work on diet, work on as much everything that I could in order to understand it, release it. So it was the 3 C's: clear it, and be absolutely sure of what it was, and go back in and make sure that what I was seeing was correct, and that it wasn't what they call a false memory. So the hospital had taught me about that as well. And then also make sure it had been cleared and it had been put to bed, and then close the wounds from it so that I could move on to the next layer, So what I did is I started going back as far as I could remember, and then with the assistance with various individuals that were helping me at the time over that 10-year period, making sure that I had cleared and released and cut all those contracts with all of that awful time that I had for those 9 years. Cut the contracts, release them, cut the contracts, clear them, release them. And that was it. So I think total independence and freedom from everything was 10 years later. So that's 2015. I hope that answers it, Gail. Thank you for your prayers again. Much appreciated, and certainly I will accept those prayers very kindly. Thank you. Beldix, what a nice name. When did you take all this up to open? You are very brave. Oh, thank you. I decided after the incident in 2005, I decided that as part of my healing, that I needed to write it down. I needed to keep the journals, get all my diaries, and put everything into a book, because I said to myself, once the book is out and I've managed to cut the contracts, get rid of all these people, send them back up to the Akashic records, I could then free my soul, but at the same token that I could free them so that I could move on, because without freeing myself and freeing them, I wasn't able to move on. So that's what I did. So thank you very much for that too. And then we've got only a few left. Let's have a look. Would you say this bad experience has made you paranoid in your life? And this question is from Sarah McNamara. No, I don't think it's made me paranoid in my life. What I think it's done is it's given me insight and a sight that if I hadn't remembered everything, I wouldn't have had the insight levels that I have now, and I wouldn't have been able to see things differently, and see things that are around me. So it was a bad experience, yes, but it hasn't made me paranoid since now healing from it and fully in 2015. I don't look for the boogeyman in the cupboard, and I don't look for you know, awful things around the corner all the time. Before that, possibly I might have, but then when I started realizing that it was up to me to heal from this, then I stopped having all those paranoid feelings, because I think with complex PTSD, there is a level of what they call it's called, what is it, hyper vigilance. You become really, you watch things all the time, and to know that that was part of it. And I did have that for a few years where I was hyper vigilant. So yes, I was not paranoid, but I was hyper vigilant. I would watch everything, clock everyone, make sure I've got notes of whoever was around me, what was around me, whether there was a car, whether there was people, whatever it was. I was really vigilant for the first year and a half. I was very, very aware of what was happening around me after 2005. And then after I started healing, I started to be able to deal with things in a more sort of logical way. I didn't feel as hunted as I might have been before. So thank you, Sarah McNamara. That was a really good question. And let me have a look. This is from Amy. Do you think she asked for more money and her kill switch was used? Wow, that's a very interesting question. I hadn't thought of that one. If Virginia had asked for that, it's possible. But I think in the state that she was in at the time, it's doubtful, because of when you look at the two kill switches that I was explaining earlier, the one where there was the accident, which is always one of them, and the second one, which was unaliving through taking substances, was the second one, or something similar. That had already become part of the playbook, because she'd already had the accident. So that was already happening. So for me, when I look at the theory of it, it's unlikely. It appears to be unlikely, but there might have been other circumstances with her ex-husband and people around her. There might have been. If she was asking for more money, or if it was a person that had a list of individuals and was asking for money from people that were still alive and kicking and in power somewhere, or were very powerful, rich people, then that would be a reason for those in control with the fixers groups, if they were still in control of that particular investment, shall we say, then that could be a reason for them to decide to activate a kill switch. But I don't get it in her case, because you know she'd been out of it for a long time. She wasn't in contact with those people. It's unlikely that whatever information she has, I'm pretty sure it's locked up somewhere, and somebody has got some really serious information, and she would have made sure that it would have gone, because we know that that's what we have to do. And there would have been some insurance somewhere. Somebody has got a list somewhere, and with all of the information. I mean, we only know 50 of the individuals that were part and parcel of, you know, Virginia's jobs that she was called out on. There were 50, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure it's double that. I mean, I've got 60 on mine, so I know for a fact that hers will be a lot more than mine would have been. So yeah, that would be it. But I don't think that she would have been asking for more money. It would have been more around what are the level of those individuals, and had she been pushed to a point where there was no return for her, she's got nothing left to lose, she could open her mouth. And as Shaun had said right in the beginning of our live broadcast, he'd said sometimes some individuals are far more worthwhile basically kept quiet to ensure they're unalived. And I think it's possible, but I'm not saying that that is the case with her. It's a theory, and for other survivors, it's probably not the case with them. As long as they're not speaking out, and as long as they're keeping quiet, I think they'll be safe. Shaun, could you kick Andrew's ass, or is that treason? Yeah, go on. Give it a karate kick. Go on then. Give it a karate kick. That's good. Right. Let's have a look. Abundantly empowered. Bev, do you still feel her energy here? I do feel that she's still around, yes. And I think she will still be around for at least a week or so. I think that because of the level of trauma that was around her, I don't think she's able to move across as quickly as one would expect someone who's moved across in a totally different environment or a totally different way. I do think that once she has seen her babies and her children and in whatever the environment's going to be when they lay her to rest, I think then she'll be happy because she'll be able to feel them, perceive them, and understand what's happening. And then I do think that she will go completely. But I do feel her energy still around. Yes, I do. That good question, abundantly empowered. This is a good question. Jade Buckley. Yeah, that one. I don't think it's in my best interest to answer that question, which is, Bev, were you abused by any royal elite? I think that one, I'm just going to have to be quiet on that one. I'll leave you to make your own decisions on that one. And we've got another one from, why does it keep popping up and down? No, don't do that. Right, I think it's going to come up, hopefully. Oh, it did. Phew. Agent Orange, could it be she had an accidental OD? No note left behind. It could have been, yes, because generally if they have a kill switch installed, they want it to appear accidental. Best way. Accident, just saying. Accident, always a good way. But I do think that what will come to light is there will be some writings from her, because if I put myself in her position, if there was an opportunity for me to write stuff about how I'm feeling, I would have written stuff and I would put the names of people that it needs to go to, and I would have hidden it somewhere. And having been in the same similar situation and being an investment for those individuals, that's exactly what I would have done. And she was a very clever lady, and she was very forthright, and she was a major fierce warrior, and she would have made sure that there was a letter to her children, because that's exactly what I would have done. And she will make sure that somehow, somewhere, somebody that's trusted has got some information, and that information, I'm sure, will get out in due time. I'm pretty sure, because that's exactly what I would have done. So good question, Agent Orange. That's really good question. And let's have a look at the next one. Michelle J. Oh, Michelle, I think we had a look at that question before. Danny Finker. Oh, sorry, Flinker. Psychological continued abuse, yes. And not only from the so-called elite, but her husband too. Yes, Danny, I agree with you. And that could have been part of the triggers, and that could have been part of the directive, which is very effective. It is very, very effective, because it's pressure and pressure and pressure and pressure. And eventually the end result is going to be creating an unalived situation. So yeah, good comment. Okay, me real to real. Oh, that's a good one. Did you get any impression these people are not humans? Just to know what we're fighting. Well, 1973, yes, is the answer to that. I think some of them, particularly for me, when I was looking through the water with my eyes open, being held down, they didn't look particularly human, and they kept phasing in and out, phasing in and out. Now, I'm not sure whether that's because I was losing it, and then when I was opening my eyes and looking up through the water and looking up at them, they definitely didn't appear to be totally human. Sometimes they looked human, sometimes they didn't. It was backwards and forwards and backwards and forward. It was almost like that shimmer, 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 shimmer. But then also when you're looking from, it was clean water, it wasn't dirty water. So clean water looking up, I think, like once I was in a swimming pool, I thought, well, I'm going to go at the bottom and look up and see what I see. But I must admit, everybody that was standing around the pool, they were very human. They weren't things. Whereas from what I remember being in the bath and being pushed down constantly, they did sort of home in and out, in and out, in and out. And sometimes the one that was holding me down, that was saying the words, that thing was not always human. Definitely not. So me, real to real, awesome question. Cheers. That's a good one. That's a really good question. Yeah. And what have we got here? Gail 34. Bev, was the husband part of the inside job and control? I don't know whether he would have been part of the group or whether he would have been part of, you know, the Fixers clan, as they like to be called, as well as other things. But I think from what I can see from the course of events and what has come to light, I think because of the narcissistic side, he would have played on her past, and he would have played on the fact that she was part of that whole society and doing all these things, because she would have told him the truth about her past. And that definitely would have been thrown in her face many, many times, for sure, because that's what happens most of the time. So although he might not necessarily have been part of them or part of the inside job or control, he would have been one of the factors that made her get to that point. He would have been increasing the pressure. I think having a look at the person that he is, he's too far down the pecking order. They wouldn't have bothered with him. The people that are involved with these things, nah. He doesn't fit the bill. Not good enough. Sorry. Not good enough. Sorry, not sorry. Let's have a look at the next one. Oh, you're talking about the DUMs. So Emmy, real to real. Yeah, there's DUMs, and there's also the tunnels, and well, there's tunnels all over, actually, pretty much all over America. There's tunnels that some of the jobs that we had to go to, we were dropped off at the top of the tunnel, come down the steps, then we had to walk through the tunnel, through the areas, and then following the person that had come to fetch the handler, myself and a number of other children were taken up to, and these tunnels they actually go from one place to the next. So from one steamer, one job, to the next job. You'll never get seen. Trust me. You don't even have to walk up top. Ever. Never. You just finish your job, change your clothes, give the clothes back, put your normal clothes on, then get ready with everybody else, get ready to go back down, and then you get told, where's the next job? Remember, in those days, there weren't mobile phones, there weren't cell phones, there weren't any of that. So it was all run by these little books, and then you'd say, right, this is the next one, this is the next one. 3 of you kids, you're going there, those 3 are going there. And then you'd have the handlers would say, right, this is the next one, this is the next one, and this is where you go. And then you get moved from place to place under the ground in the tunnels. So nobody ever saw you. You were literally out of sight and very much out of mind. So good question there. So yeah, we were moved under the ground. And thank you, and no. And Anne says, thank you for the super chat. And I'm sure Shaun will see this when he gets back. As you know, I was essayed by my dad. Yes, I know. And it all happened when I was trying to sleep. Right now, I have to take strong meds to sleep. Why do I have so much judgment around taking the medicine? Oh, that's a really good question. I think we all kind of feel that we should be strong enough. And we beat ourselves up because we feel that we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And part of the guilt is, I should have known, I should have fought back, I should have been strong enough, and I shouldn't have been weak-minded. And that's part of the beating up that we do of ourselves. But I will say, Anne, take your strong meds to sleep and start working on other areas to enable yourself to sleep. Work on the meditation, work on, I use some really nice meditation music to sleep, which is very effective. I do a lot of relaxation techniques, and it does help. But firstly, forgive yourself. You are not at fault here. Do not have the judgment around this. You're doing the best you can. You will get better. It might take a while, but you will get better. And don't ever allow anybody to say to you that you were weak and that you could have done more, because that says more about that person than it does about you. So forgive yourself. You did not know. You would not have wished this on yourself. And the fact that it was your dad, he's going to have his own demons to face at some point. But don't be judgy on yourself. Allow yourself to heal and come to terms with it, because you are not at fault. You are not guilty, and you don't need to carry the shame. I hope that helps, Anne. And it's good to see you here. And what do we have? The Real Sassafras. Oh, that's a very nice sticker. Thank you for the super sticker. I'm pretty sure that Shaun will be very happy with that. And what have we got? Yes, actually, Sarah Kay, I believe when we were talking backstage previously, Shaun had said that he had spoken to quite a few of the different survivors, and there were other people in America that he knows that were also talking to survivors. And I know that there's this like round robin, there's this what they call a survivor tree, where they go through all of the phone numbers to speak to everybody, make sure everybody's okay. So yes, I can confirm they are talking to survivors, and they are talking to everybody to make sure that everybody is managing as best they can. Obviously, with this sort of thing coming out, there is a worry. Absolutely, there is a worry. But I doubt very much, having been part of this, although it is in the 70s, I doubt very much that they're going to go after anyone, and I doubt very much whether anything else will happen. I really doubt it. It will be something that they just want it to go away so they can carry on doing what they're doing. So yes, Sarah, thank you for asking a really important question. Yes, people are checking in on other survivors. Absolutely, yes. So I'm going to take that one and do the little thingy-bob and that. And you know what? I think I've actually got to it. Yay, I did. So thank you for everybody who's been here today. And thank you for everyone sitting until the end. And there's some other comments. I'll go to some of the comments. So Cyan, again, there's a warm spark in your eyes in that picture, despite all the torture. The soul is pure within, and you meditate that. Oh, that's so lovely to hear. Thank you so much. I often wonder whether my eyes appeared quite soulless at times. I did feel that, and I've worked very, very, very hard to get all that back. So that comment, amongst others with prayers, that comment has made my day for me. So thank you. That's a lovely comment. Ruth, I am so sorry that you've been through this, Beverly. Yes, thank you. But you know what? It's making a difference out there. I went through it so that others don't have to, which is why we have Surviving Life, which is why I help Big Homie. That's why we do all the things we do, and that's why the movement was started. And that's why we've got, 3,000 volunteers. Yes, 3,000 people that are watching, looking, making a difference. So thank you to everybody. So there is a reason for it. Yeah, we've got one. Yeah, they are so evil. Yeah, aren't they just? And they get away with it. But, the light is winning. They won't get away with it for much longer. Yeah, Rocky Mountain Skywalker. You have no idea how strong the programming is. True. Very, very true. Hi, Erica. Hello, my friends. Hello back to you. And that is, well, I think, oh, there we go. This is, oh, now how am I going to say that word? Gzizzy? Hopefully that's right. So glad it's just Shaun and Beverly, and she's able to fully express herself. Thank you so much. And he's beetled off, this scallywag. Pinch him in the bum. He's gone off to karate. So there we go. So it's fine. And I've said hello to pretty much everybody. Annette 113. Oh my goodness. Yes, there we go. And abundantly empowered. The goal from the beginning seems like it's get you to self-delete. Yeah. Well, when you're not worthwhile and you're not making the money, what's the point, you know? It's like, why would you keep a racehorse? If that racehorse isn't going to make you any money anymore, they even have an insurance terms for racehorses. They actually have a term for it. It's called economical slaughter. So there we go. Same old, same old. Same with, you know, the investments. And let's have a look. Yeah, Lilith is saying, this is horrific. Love you, Beverly. Thank you so much. You look lovely too. And let's go to the last few. Yeah, I absolutely agreed. Abundantly empowered has said, they get you to believe you're worthless and are lower than nothing. Yes, that's where they get you to. They get you to that point where nothing matters. You don't, you know, feel feathers anymore. You know, basically nothing matters, and they will take away from you what you care about the most. And I think that's part of that, you know, as I said earlier, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. I think that's part of what happened to the lovely Virginia. So I'm going to say to everybody now, yeah, may she rest in peace, because she really deserves it. She's fought really very hard to get to the point that she's at. And hopefully now she'll be able to rest and she can move on and move carefully onto the other side and protect herself and protect her loved ones from where she is. Bloom Nomad has asked, what is the cleanup job? I was wondering if someone would pick that up. If you're on cleanup duty, it would be, you get to a certain age and, you know, the steamers choose the younger ones, and they prefer the younger ones because you're starting to get old, you know, 14, 15 particularly. And if you get to 16, you still kind of, for that group of people, you're too old, you need to move on to somewhere else. So the only jobs really that they'll take you out on will be watch out, make sure that you're the lookout and that you can do a cleanup. So if they've had an incident with one of the children, there's a problem, and they need people to go in, children or young people to go in and clean up and make sure that the scene is cleared before the next lot arrive to do the professional cleanup. You would then go in and do that. If you're on a hunt and the children perhaps are only partial, then what you'd have to do is you'd have to be one of the ones that would take your buckets and you'd go and do the pickup, and you would take it off into the back of the vehicle, and you would take it to the farm, and you would give it to the snakes and the pigs and everything else to make sure, because children that are walking in the woods with baskets and things with a grown-up, they don't actually attract any attention. So if there's a road going past, or that people see children in the woods with a grown-up looking for things on the floor, it does not attract attention, and that's a cleanup job. So if you're going out there to clean up after a hunt, it's easy enough, because no one is going to ask somebody out with a group of children, oh, what you looking for? You're hunting for berries, or you're hunting for mushrooms, or whatever. They're just going to drive past and they're not going to bother with you. You know, it's called in plain sight. Cleanup job in plain sight. So I've answered that one. And yeah, I think I have answered pretty much everything. Lioness is saying, for me, this is totally effed up. I've been living in complete ignorance. How couldn't Lioness, you couldn't have known. Most people don't know. And yes, it is in plain sight. Clever. They are really clever. So I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody who's stayed until the end of this live broadcast. If you are triggered or if you're suffering from anything similar, please come and get in touch with me on my website, and that is Awakening Academy. If you want to know more of my story, my book is out there. It's called The Horse Girl, and that's the story of hate, hope, and healing. And it says basically what I survived. I have had to take some bits out because there was a lot of detail that I put in, and the publishing house that I went with just said we can't publish it with all that in there. You have to take some of it out. So you will find when you read it, it stops abruptly because there's stuff I had to take out. But I will warn you, it has got a disclaimer on the back. It says a warning. It's very sensitive material. If you have got children in the house, please put the book up far away so they can't get to it, because it is disturbing material. And I want to say thank you very much for your support of me, and thank you very much in advance for your support of all survivors. And have a reasonably good week ahead, and many blessings and prayers to everybody. Thank you once again. Bye for now.